Will yoga help you to lose weight? Short answer, not directly, but here's how stepping onto the yoga mat helped to change everything for me, from my mindset, my habits, and ultimately my body. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather, and I make videos about yoga, strength training, nutrition, and mindset, all rooted within yoga philosophy. And so let's talk today about how yoga either directly or indirectly supports your weight loss goals, your body transformation goals. So yoga won't necessarily directly have a huge impact on your initial weight loss goal. So weight loss and fat loss is really largely a result of eating in a calorie deficit. So yoga can indirectly help you to get into that calorie deficit and even stay into that calorie deficit. And here's how that happens. It happens for me is sort of this mindset shift, this change, this sort of domino effect that yoga helped me to come back to a healthy lifestyle. So I'm that kind of person that I know that if I get off track with my nutrition, with my workouts, with my healthy lifestyle, with my goals, if I get off track, I know that I can come back. Yoga is always that thing, like if I'm like, okay, I haven't been to the gym in a month, I say to myself, all right, I'm going to go do 20 minutes of yoga, or I'm going to go do a yoga class. It's always the thing that I come back to when I get out of my routine. It helps me to reset, refocus, and focus back in on having healthy habits. So another way that yoga can really help support your weight loss, fat loss, and body transformation goals is it helps you become more mindful of the food that you're eating. And what I mean by this is that, say you're going to plan to do yoga at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever, it's after work. And you look at the clock, it's 1 o'clock, and you think to yourself, oh, well, I can't necessarily have this huge meal because I'm going to yoga later today. And doing forward folds and downward facing dogs and things like that with food in your stomach isn't always the most fun thing to do. You could certainly do it, but you might feel it start to come back up. But when you start paying attention to being more mindful, like when you're eating, what you're eating, based on the fact that you have incorporated a yoga practice into your daily, or your weekly healthy lifestyle, right? So what I would say is this is like, you're not necessarily going to at 1 o'clock have this huge pasta, meal with all this sauce and fatty sauces and that kind of things on it. You might choose to have something like, a lean protein, some vegetables, maybe some berries that go with it, or an apple, something like that. So you start making different food choices because A, you're going to go to yoga later on in the day, but then B, over time, you start to become more mindful of all of the different things that impact how you feel. And one thing that is going to impact how you feel is your nutrition and the things that you're eating. So you might say, wow, every time I eat this thing, I feel like crap. I'm not going to eat it anymore. Maybe eat it in more moderation, or even things like alcohol or sugary foods with a lot of additional sugars in them. You might start paying more attention to how they make you feel. And yoga is going to help you do that. Yoga is going to help you become more mindful of the way certain foods make you feel. Another area that yoga certainly helps with a weight loss, fat loss, body transformation journey is this domino effect. As I said earlier, when I get out of my routine, when I feel like I need to get back into things, yoga is always that first thing that I go to. I take a 20-minute yoga class online on my Peloton app. I do it on my own, or I go to a yoga studio. Even going to the gym, there's yoga classes at most gyms. And it really just kind of helps me to get recentered and refocused. And then there's this domino effect that happens after that. I start paying attention more to my food. I'm more mindful with my nutrition and when I'm actually eating. So when I sit down to eat, it's not, scarfing my food while I'm driving and not paying attention to it. Or it's not scarfing my food down while I'm watching a movie on Netflix or something like this. Like, I'm actually paying attention to the food, to the flavors, to the chewing, that kind of thing, that I'm actually paying attention to that. Okay. So we've got the movement, nutrition, and then you start paying more attention to things like how much water you're drinking, and you start paying attention to things like how much you're sleeping, and is your sleep schedule regular, and what kinds of things can you do to get some better sleep. And you start paying attention to all of these other things that go into a healthy lifestyle. And over time, those habits start adding up. And that's where you start seeing the transformation in your body. Certainly, if you're trying to lose weight, lose fat, it comes down to that calorie deficit, but all these other things around it are going to help support that and help make that calorie deficit something that you can stay in, that you can do. And it's going to help with that body transformation. So if you want your body to look a certain way, all of these habits are really going to come together. They're all going to start working together for you to see that body transformation. So let me answer a couple of questions that you might have now that you've watched this video and you're like, all right, Heather, so yoga indirectly can help support my weight loss goals. So what type of yoga? What type of yoga should I do to help me lose weight? All right. And my answer for that with any kind of exercise is it's the one that you're going to do. All right. Bottom line, it's the one that you're going to do. So if you really enjoy more restorative type of yoga class, do restorative yoga. These are classes where you're going to get into a pose and you're going to hold it for 10, even 15 minutes sometimes. And then, there's other types of yoga where you've got, the hot sequence, the 26 set sequence where you're going to go and it's like, it's 110 degrees and that kind of thing. But if you like that, if you enjoy it, do that type of yoga. Okay. If you like more of a slow flow type vinyasa class, do that. All right. So the idea here is that yoga is going to help support that mindfulness and that body transformation and that change in your mindset, okay, and having that movement every single day. So it's whatever type of yoga that you're going to do is the one that I would suggest doing. Now, how do you know what type of yoga to do? Try them all. Find some different studios in your local area. Try out different types of yoga. They're always welcoming of new people that maybe not have tried that type of yoga before. They're all going to welcome you. I also offer some Zoom classes where I teach a slow flow vinyasa style class. It's a 30-minute class. You can get that scheduled on my website. I've also got things like yoga trapeze, where it's a mixture of the TRX that you might have at the gym and something like an aerial yoga swing or sling that you might have. And so I teach that type of yoga as well. So there's all these different types of yoga out there. It's not just the one class of the one thing that you went to the one time. All right. Get online, find some classes, find some things available in your area. Even get online, get on YouTube, try out the different types of classes. Can yoga alone be enough to support my weight loss goal? So what I would say is, like, you are the type of person, like, you wake up in the morning and you sit all day at your job. You get in the car and you drive to work, and then you sit all day at your job, and then you drive back home, and you're doing a whole lot of sitting. Yoga is certainly a great way for you to get started with getting some movement in for your day. It always is going to depend on what your long-term goals are. But if your goal is that you need to get more movement in through your day to help you sort of set up this domino effect of, I'm going to make this change and then this change and then this change, not all in one day, but it's going to happen over, months of time, right? Then yes, then yoga can certainly help support you in that body transformation goal. If your goal is to do things like build muscle or do a bodybuilding competition, something like that, yoga alone is not going to be enough. So it's really going to depend on what your goals are. But if you are, you're like in this point where you're like, I got to do something, I got to get back to my old self, yoga is 100% a great starting point for you to get more movement in throughout your day, knowing that you're going to have that domino effect that you might start doing some more walking. You might go to the pool, you might go to the gym and take a class. All these different things start to happen. So the question is, what kinds of foods did you start eating once yoga made you more mindful? I will say that I stopped eating these really heavy food that I know were going to take a long time to digest. I like to have a big lunch. That's the meal that I like to have. The biggest meal of the day is lunch. However, I do like to go to yoga class after work. So if I have a really huge lunch at noon, 1 o'clock, oftentimes it's not fully digested by a 4:30 or even a 6 p.m. yoga class, okay? And so the shift that I made was, let's start to eat a little bit more smaller meals more frequently rather than having just this really large meal at lunchtime, okay? So I started eating more lean proteins, fish, chicken, turkey, things like this that are really good source of lean protein. And then I started eating vegetables. So things like a salad or maybe some raw vegetables to crunch on, maybe some steamed broccoli, things like this. And then adding in fruit. So adding in something like an apple or some berries. I really love berries. So I started eating a lot of berries. So I really try to focus on plants and protein. You can even add in some grain or even things like sweet potatoes, things like that. That would fall under the plant section, but I really started to focus on the plants and the proteins. That's really became the main source of my fuel. Also adding in healthy fats. So things like avocado oil and avocado themselves. You can get some nut oils, some really good nut oils that add some good flavor to some of your vegetables and even your protein as well. So that is also a nice source of healthy fats. And the final question is, how do you stay motivated when the results are slow? All right. So I want to reframe this. Okay. Let's reframe what results are. All right. Once you get to a certain point in life, over 40, over 50, even over 35, like things can take time to happen. All right. You're not going to get the super quick results that you did when you were 17 years old or even 27 years old. Okay. So let's redefine what results are. So if you are trying to lose weight, lose body fat, you might be really tied into that number on the scale. All right. That number on the scale is 100% not going to tell you everything. I will say that I was up almost 2 pounds today from yesterday because I ate a meal yesterday that had a lot of salt in it. All right. So I know that I'm retaining water. I can tell my wedding ring is tight. And so I know that I'm retaining water. Okay. So the scale doesn't tell you everything. So what I would do is if your goal is weight loss or fat loss, what I would tell you is to find an outfit that you want to be able to fit in. It might be an outfit that you have hanging in your closet that you haven't fit in 20 years. It might be a pair of shorts that you haven't worn since before the pandemic. That's what it was for me. I actually bought a pair of shorts in 2022 to wear on a cruise, and I never wore them because it didn't fit me. And that was my goal, was to get into those shorts. I've now since passed through those shorts and they're now too big for me. But that can be a really good way to measure results is, an article of clothing, an outfit, something that you want to be able to fit in and try it on. Try it on every 2 weeks. Don't try it on every day. You're going to drive yourself freaking crazy. You can try it on every 2 weeks or so. The other thing I would suggest doing is to take your measurements and take multiple measurements. When I first started, I was taking measurements in my chest, my waist, my belly button, and my hips. And what I found there is that there might be times that the scale dropped, but my measurements didn't change. And the reason for that was because I probably lost fat off my arms. I probably lost some fat off my legs, things that I wasn't measuring. So take multiple measurements throughout your body and you can start tracking how you're making progress there as well. And the other thing I would suggest is to take progress photos. I know there's these challenges out there. I've done these challenges like the 75 hard that you take a progress photo every single day. That kind of drives me a little bit crazy. So what I would suggest doing is take a progress photo every 2 weeks. So maybe when you try on your outfit, take a progress photo at that same time and take it in something that you would be okay putting on the internet, because you know what might happen is you're like, I have these wonderful results. I want to share it with people. Make sure that you take your pictures in something that you're comfortable sharing on the internet. So if you take those pictures every 2 weeks and, over 2, 3, 4, 5 months, you're going to see that progress happening, even if it's not necessarily happening as fast as you want it to happen on the scale. So when you're thinking about how to stay motivated when the results are slow, let's reframe what results are. All right. So thank you for joining me in this video today. I've got all sorts of really great resources available for you to support you in your healthy lifestyle journey on my website. You can go to heathermonthly.com/free. I've got a whole list of free things on there. I've got a nutrition guide. I've got a yoga kickstart guide. I've got all sorts of really good stuff in there. I want to talk a little bit about my nutrition guide. My nutrition guide is a guide that I call Feel Like You Again. And this is a guide for those of you who might be like where I was, where it was like, I just really want to feel like myself again. And I know that I need to change how it is that I'm eating. And this guide is rooted in yoga principles. It's not super woo-woo or anything, but it's just helping you to think more mindfully about your nutrition, how you're planning your meals, and then what you're actually putting in your mouth on a day-to-day basis. You can get that guide at nutrition.sorellawellness.co. It's also linked on my website at heathermonthly.com/free. I'll make sure that there's a link for you in the description below. You can go there, you can grab that. I'd also like to invite you to join me for a live Zoom yoga class. I offer a free 30-minute slow flow vinyasa style class via Zoom. I offer it a couple times throughout the month at various times. We do sometimes at 6 a.m., Pacific time. Sometimes we do it at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So there's just various times. So you can go to sorellawellness.co/schedule and you can find my schedule there. I do update that monthly. So I hope to see you on the mat. Download that nutrition guide. I hope you find this helpful. If you do find this helpful, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share this video with somebody who you think might also find it helpful.